I'm a British Pakistani. I've only ever visited Pakistan on holiday, but I am moving over to Islamabad for a couple of months next month during the election period. It's very exciting. I'm slightly nerves and trepidation as well because I've never actually lived in the country, so it will be a totally different experience than living in London. But I'm really excited. There are a lot of stories that I want to bring to the news agenda here that I think I can, being female and British and Pakistani. I think I have a unique view on things and a number of stories, especially about women, that you don't normally hear about. So I'm really looking forward to be able to picture those stories to different outlets within the BBC and to perhaps balance or try to start balancing the coverage that we have coming out of Pakistan. It's easier to band a whole group of people together, and it's easier in terms of descriptions and in terms of vocabulary that's used. And sadly, at the moment, mostly all the stories that come out of Pakistan are either to deal with natural disasters, political corruption, or terrorist-related activity. Outside of Pakistan, Britain has the largest number of Pakistanis living outside of the country, second to Saudi Arabia. So what happens in Pakistan has an effect in the UK, not only within the Pakistani community in the UK, but in the community as a whole. So what happens in Pakistan definitely has a direct relation to what happens over here, which is why the government is so keen on maintaining links and ties with the country, because there is a direct effect over here. So yes, it's easier in a way to use generalized, stereotypical phrases and comments when it comes to Pakistan, because sadly at the moment the nature of all the stories we hear are related to certain areas of the news. Stories that make the news about Pakistan often deal with the corruption, the political volatility in the country, a lot of terrorist-related stories, suicide bombings, natural disasters. It's all pretty bleak, the news that comes out of Pakistan. But I'd say it depends on which media you turn to. I think broadcasters always were regulated by Ofcom, so when you look to the BBC, you always look to get both sides of the argument to balance out our coverage. But when you go to newspapers, it's far more opinion-based. So you do get people who are either pro or anti-Pakistan. But historically, Pakistan has had a very troubled past. It's still a young country. I think people forget just how young it is. So yes, it's going through a lot of troubles. It's on a rocky road, but there are a lot of positive things happening in Pakistan. Sadly, they don't often make the top of the news agenda, but that's just the way it is. There's a saying in news: if it bleeds, it leads. And sadly, with Pakistan, often the stories that come out are the negative and relatively stereotypical stories. Unfortunately, when you ask any person on the street, what do you think, and I say the word Pakistan or talk to them about Pakistanis, on the whole, they think about mad mullahs with big beards, Kalashnikovs, the Taliban, and it's not generally, unless you know Pakistani or you've been to the country, it's not genuinely positive. But that's not to say there aren't a lot of positive and things that you wouldn't necessarily associate with Pakistan going on. Half the population is under 25. It has a huge entrepreneurial spirit. Young people are incredibly keyed up into IT. I was just researching, I found out there's a huge movement of parkour, which is free running. In Karachi and Islamabad, the young people are setting up their own sort of free running schools, and these things you never think about or never hear about. So it's kind of important to set a balance, I think, in when you're portraying a country, because the media are very influential in how people perceive certain countries.